Frid och shalom vänner, då kommer en snabb uppdatering här om Iran. Vad är det som händer? Det laddas upp i Mellanöstern hela tiden. Hur tänker Shia-muslimer? Sen vet vi att stora militärmakter är nere i Mellanöstern. Det går också rykten om att det finns atombåtar från USA utplacerade. Och vi undrar då, är detta Hesekiel 38 som laddas upp? Eller är detta något som leder till den fred som Bibeln talar om ska ske innan Hesekiel 38-39, vilket vi tror är samma krig som Harmageddon? Vi ska titta, får vi se.
Back up a little bit. Let's start off with this. Iran used to be no, let's even back up a little bit further. Iranians are not Arabs. They're Muslims, but they're not Arabs, meaning they actually adhere to the Muslim religion, but they are not racially of the Arab peoples. They are not from Arabia. They're from Persia, the Persian Empire, the whole Book of Esther. All of that is Iran that became Muslim at some point, and they adopted a very radical version of Islam called the Shia Islam, which is very different from the Sunni. Islam as a whole, and Iran in particular, is very, very disappointed with the fact that the Muslims are not running the world. It's a deep, deep issue inside the Muslim world, and we have to listen to what they say when they say it, is that we should be running the world. We have the greatest religion. We have the final prophet. We should know this. And the fact that we are not is because we are not being righteous enough. We're not being pious enough. We're not being fanatical enough. And Iran simplifies, we want to return to our piety. We wanted to return to our religion. We want to return to our fundamentalism. The name for that in Arabic is jihad. And we want to spread this to the rest of the world. That is Iran. Let's make this clear. And they believe that they are going to lead the return of the Islam to the front of the world. Now, another thing you need to understand, that as opposed to Christianity today, by the way, in the past it wasn't that way, but as opposed to Christianity today, Islam is a political religion, meaning the head of the Iranian religion, the Pope of Shia religion, is also the head of the Iranian state. It's like saying that the Pope in Rome is also the head of all of the, by the way, that was the situation for many, many years. Oh, yeah. Okay. Is the head of all of the Christian, he is the supreme leader. It's what they call him, the supreme leader of Christendom. So the Ayatollah, which is the word for Pope, basically, is the supreme leader of Shiite Islam. It is a religious and a political role put together. And they believe that they should use politics, military, economic means to enhance the religion. It's like the Pope saying, let's use everything that the Catholic Church is in order to make political concessions. I mean, that's where Iran is. Let's make this clear. They say it, they mean it, they do it. I don't understand why we, as the Western world, as Christianity, don't take them for their word. They want to overthrow Christianity as the main religion, the main concept, the main creed in the world today. And that's on their agenda.
Okay, can we just back up for a second? Because this is something that we know. We have spent a lot of time drilling it in people's heads, what the truth is concerning Iran, what's going on. Quite frankly, I think that when you make the statement that Islam is a political sort of a culture or religion, Islam is doing with its religion what we should be doing with the truth. And I think it's really funny because as Christians, we constantly feed the lie to other people that says, we have no business getting into the political discussion because God has nothing to do with politics and so on and so forth. When in reality, our view of God creates the politics that we currently live in and are in the center of. So this is where the Shiites are getting it right, in the sense that their view of Allah it takes on a very different connotation within the political circle, which creates a whole new issue for everybody. So this is not some, I wake up in the morning, go to my 9-to-5 job, maximize the income that I can make, choose to exchange my time in exchange for a few dollars to go in my pocket. That's not this. This is I wake up in the morning and I don't do a 9-to-5, I do a 24/7. And I'm doing it because I believe this is my commission from Allah. I do this bi'isma Allah, in the name of Allah. So this is something that they take very seriously. They are given permission in the Quran. The Quran teaches them this. The Quran teaches them to be deceivers. They're taught that. The Quran says, which basically says that Allah is the chief of deceivers. So they can even deceive in what they do. They even have a word for it, taqiyya, which is a whole other story, different discussion altogether.
Oh, wait, no, it's not, because I think we're seeing another example of taqiyya.
Well, yeah, but there's a bigger, you're right. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be bringing it up right now. Like I would not even be bringing up the issue of lying and deception if I wasn't going to a bigger point. Yeah. The bigger point is they utilize lying and deception to cover up the truth because they understand the power of the truth, and actually do everything that they can to keep the truth from manifesting using the utilization of a lie. Can I give you an example of this?
Yeah, let's do it.
And by the way, this actually comes from a Shiite-leaning country. This is exactly what ends up happening, okay? If you look at the prophecies in the Old Testament that deal with Jesus touching his foot down on the Mount of Olives and coming through the East Gate, what's funny to me is that the liars of the world, the ones who worship a false god, the ones who actually worship the God who says he's the chief of deceivers, take Bible prophecy so seriously, the words of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they take it so seriously that they do two things to the area of the Temple Mount. The first thing that they do is they seal off the eastern gate. It completely cemented off, sealed off where nobody can get into it, because they believe that Jesus will come back doing what he's doing more than the Christians do. And the other thing that they do, and this sounds even crazier, is they set up a cemetery that is under the wall in that area, in that valley.
Okay,
because they don't want Christ to walk over it.
James, I can literally see the cemetery behind you on that picture.
Yes,
okay?
That's right.
And if you move your chair a little bit, you're going to see the gate that is actually sealed off. Okay, it's the other way.
Here, let me get. Yeah. It shows the opposite end on my camera. So okay, sorry. That's why.
And you can actually see that cemetery right below the Dome of the Rock. And the idea is this, and again, it is representative of the fact that Islam is not a faith-based religion. It is a power-based religion, which means
deception-based more than ever. Yeah,
exactly. So they believe that in doing and playing this game, they make their religion more powerful, and my religion is going to overcome your religion because we're more powerful. It's like, like children in kindergarten saying, my daddy's stronger than your daddy. That's the basic kind of idea that is behind that. And they are forgetting the faith element. Not forgetting, there's no faith element in Islam. It's not about faith. It's about power. You don't have a personal relationship with God. Your relationship goes through your clergy, through the religious, through the system. Now, anybody who knows anything about history knows that the Catholic world was that way for a long time, where the Pope was a political entity as much as he was a faith entity. And look what it did. It brought the Dark Ages to all of Europe. And
100%.
Things. And they are in, I would call this the Dark Ages of Islam.
Yes.
But the problem is that we are Christian. And when a Christian who feels generosity, who feels turn the other cheek, who feels love your enemy, comes up with an enemy who feels control your enemy, lie to them, and conquer them if you can, what side is going to have the advantage in this situation?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think we're seeing this now. And let's bring up, I don't know if you can find, I'm looking at ABC News, the ABC News headline today from 5 hours ago. Iran's supreme leader has opened the door to renewed negotiations with the United States over his country's rapidly advancing nuclear program.
That's why.
Do we have time for another event or another subject before we kind of?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's tackle it, because these are all very important.
Okay. One of the things I want to tackle is what's going on inside the Palestinian world, and
we want to talk about these aircraft carriers too. Could we talk about that as well for a second?
Okay, let's hit aircraft carriers. By the way, does everybody understand that when we say aircraft carrier, we're not talking about one?
Yeah, we're talking about the group, right?
We're talking about what I think the United States calls a strike group, or
carrier group. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Which includes destroyers, and it includes submarines, and includes, it is a massive projection of power into the Middle East. And here's the thing. The aircraft carrier groups, just a quick one. The two aircraft carriers that are now in the Middle East are the Abraham Lincoln and the Franklin Roosevelt.
It's so crazy.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. The Lincoln has been here for a while. Okay. The Roosevelt was in the Gulf of Oman trying to deal with with Iran / the Red Sea kind of dynamic. Okay. And the United States brought in the Abraham Lincoln all the way from Guam, as in just, south of India. And what I'm trying to say is there's two American carrier groups in the Middle East, which is a huge amount. And then I think I just saw a little bit of information that the USS George Washington was called into San Diego for repairs, which means there's no carrier in the Pacific today.
And that's crazy. I mean, you just think about it. It's crazy. And you start looking at some of the titles that I'm looking at that relate to this. It's wild. Like, it's funny that you mentioned in this. I mean, it's actually worthwhile having a discussion regarding, but it's really funny that you mentioned the USS Abraham Lincoln arriving in Central Command. Like, I don't think people understand the significance of these types of moves taking place. And I guess the question that I have, because I'm not so sure I have an answer, the question that I have is, why all of these tactical deployments into the Middle East? Why are we pulling our assets out of the Pacific near Japan? Why are we even pulling out our assets that are in the Pacific off the coast of the United States of America? What are we seeing that's so desperate right now that we see the need to make these types of maneuvers, especially leaving our western end completely vulnerable?
Okay, I can't help it. I mean, somebody just hit me in the face with this, okay? What we're seeing, and I could talk geopolitics with you, but here's the thing. What would happen in the world if Israel did get smacked? I mean, major. What would happen in the world if a mushroom cloud goes up over Tel Aviv? Or what would happen in the world if the Iranians do manage to pull together a ring of fire, the way they're talking about it? Or what would happen in the world if they do manage to pull together some kind of joint maneuver with the Turks and the Russians? What would happen in the world if this becomes an Ezekiel 38 event?
Well, the good news is, and I want to say this before I even answer that question. The good news is Ezekiel 38 can't even begin to happen. Like, we're not even close to Ezekiel 38, in the sense that in order for Ezekiel 38 to happen, you have to have peace in Israel. And it has to be so much peace that Israel doesn't see a need to have fenced cities. Okay, good luck that happening right now. It's not happening right now. However, let me just say this. If that does happen, and we find ourselves in an Ezekiel 38 scenario, Israel will be cooked. There's nothing Israel can do about it until God steps in, and God will step in, and that's when we'll actually see God judging a portion of the world. And I think that there's no other way of putting it. I believe that is when the world will witness divine intervention.
But again, to answer your question from a geopolitical, I'm looking at a map of the world and I'm saying, wait a minute, what I'm seeing is the United States of America with all its military assets maneuvering to make sure that an Ezekiel 38 event will not happen. And yeah. I find that it's just amazing.
But this is my question, David.
James, it's amazing for me to be able to say a sentence like that the geopolitical maneuvering of military assets by the biggest marine of power in the world is maneuvering to make sure that biblical prophecy is not fulfilled.
I think you're onto something big there. The question that I would ask is this: is that the only reason why they're in the Middle East right now? Or is there any other thoughts that you're having?
No, there's a lot of thoughts, but what I can't help is, like other things in my life and world history, all of a sudden you see these mechanisms and movements, and this gear is turning this way and that lever is going that way. And then all of a sudden something happens where you say, wait a minute, this is all biblical.
Yep.
And what we're seeing, and I know it's weird to say this about aircraft carriers, but I am seeing a mechanism that is actually lining up. And I don't know if this is the time. I don't know if this is Ezekiel 38. But again, what would bring the kind of peace that Ezekiel 38 needs into the Middle East is a massive American military power, because Israel can't do it on its own. Okay. Yeah. Spreading an umbrella over Israel, saying to Israel's enemies, you have no choice, get out of this. A change in American mentality that says their job is to, push back against the enemies of Israel, because the enemies of Israel are the enemies of the United States, what we're not seeing right now. And that would be the precursor of any kind of Ezekiel 38 event.
I would agree with that. That is solid analysis. I would totally agree with that. And I agree with that based on what the Bible says. I agree with that is solid biblical geopolitical analysis. I would agree. And there's a lot of questions about that. Like, how does that get fulfilled, right? Like, how does that happen?
I get you.
And that's the struggle.
Here's the thing. I'm feeling sometimes, and all our friends, including my wife, I don't know if she's listening to me, would very, very much enjoy me being on this side of the debate, is sometimes when you see the snow on the TV screen, all of a sudden creates a figure that all of a sudden you recognize. And I think that is basically what the Bible is supposed to do. Is supposed to be that figure that you're looking for in all the chaos in this world that we're seeing all over the place.
Okay. More evidence of the fact that we are getting near the end and God knows what he's doing. Let me run this next question by. This is important because we talked about this